Excellent! We'll begin Whispers of the Ancients, Episode 16, The Chachapoya, Warriors of the Cloud Forest, approximately 800 to 1470 CE, Segment 1. The realm above the clouds in the eastern slopes of the Andes, where mist clings to the mountains and dense forests weave a veil over ancient stone. The Chachapoya built a world few dared to enter. Their domain was a land of deep canyons, rushing rivers, and soaring cliffs, a borderland between highland and jungle, where only the resilient could thrive. The Incas called them Chachapoyac, the people of the clouds. It was not only a reflection of their geography, but of their mystique. These people constructed towering stone settlements in the heart of cloud forests, hidden in terrain so rugged it was nearly untouchable. For centuries, their culture flourished in isolation, distinct, defiant, and rich in tradition. Unlike many of their contemporaries, the Chachapoya did not rely on flat valleys or coastal plains. They made the mountains their stronghold. They carved roads into cliffs, terraced hillsides for agriculture, and raised fortresses atop ridges that pierced the sky. Here, in this realm above the clouds, a civilization emerged that would one day face the greatest empire of the Andes and leave behind ruins as haunting as they are majestic. Segment 2, Kuélap, Fortress of the Mist. Of all the legacies left by the Chachapoya, none rivals the scale or mystery of Kuélap. Perched at over 3,000 meters above sea level, this immense stone citadel was constructed centuries before the Incas. Massive outer walls stretch more than 600 meters in length, rising as high as 19 meters, as tall as a 6-story building, built from limestone blocks weighing several tons each. It remains one of the largest ancient structures in South America. But Kuélap was no ordinary city. Its narrow entrances, shaped like funneling passageways, were designed for defense. Any would-be invaders would have been forced to enter in single file, a fatal bottleneck in times of attack. Inside, more than 400 circular stone dwellings fill the terraced slopes. Each one had thatched roofs, and some bore friezes with geometric patterns. Unlike the square structures common in other parts of the Andes, the Chachapoya favored the circular, perhaps symbolic of continuity, community, or connection to the natural world. Though Kuélap's exact purpose remains debated, archaeologists believe it served as both a religious and political center, a seat of power, and perhaps a last redoubt in times of war. The cloud forest has reclaimed parts of the fortress with moss-covered walls and creeping vines, hiding the stonework. But even shrouded in mist, Kuélap remains a testament to Chachapoya engineering and their defiant hold over the heights. Segment 3, Warriors and Defenders. The Chachapoya were not a single centralized state, but a network of clan-based societies spread across the cloud forests of what is now northern Peru. Independent yet united by culture, they shared religious practices, architectural styles, and most crucially, a readiness for conflict. Living on the fringes of powerful empires, the Chachapoya became expert defenders of their domain. Their settlements were built on ridge lines and steep slopes, naturally fortified by geography. Strategic locations like Rivache and Mausoleos de Lopetoca demonstrate their acute understanding of terrain, not only for defense, but for reverence. Skeletal remains found within cliffside tombs reveal robust individuals, muscular frames, healed fractures, and signs of repeated combat. Warriors were likely trained from youth, accustomed to moving through dense forests and narrow paths, capable of striking with speed and disappearing into the mist. The Inca chroniclers, particularly those writing after the conquest, described the Chachapoya as fierce and light-skinned, unlike most Andean peoples. While some of this may stem from myth or exaggeration, it suggests that the Chachapoya was seen as a distinct ethnic group within the Andes. When the Inca expansion reached their lands, in the late 15th century, the Chachapoya resisted fiercely, though ultimately absorbed into the empire of Pachacuti and his successors. They never forgot their independence. Rebellions erupted even after their conquest, and many Chachapoya communities remained restive subjects under Inca rule. Segment 4, Temples of the Dead. Perhaps the most haunting legacy of the Chachapoya lies not in their fortresses, but in their relationship with the dead. High up in vertical cliff faces, in places unreachable by foot, they placed sarcophagi, tall, human-shaped coffins fashioned from clay, wood and stone. These figures, painted in white and red, stood like silent sentinels, their black eyes forever staring into the forest beyond. The most famous examples are the sarcophagi of Crogia, standing up to 2 meters tall. Each figure once held a mummy inside, curled in fetal position, wrapped in textiles and surrounded by offerings. To the Chachapoya, the dead were not gone, they were guardians, spirits connected to the land, family and future. They built mausoleums in impossible places, carved directly into cliff faces, stacked on ledges where only birds dared fly. These tombs were communal, often containing generations of the same bloodline. The high placement may have symbolized the soul's journey toward the heavens, or served as protection against grave robbers and spiritual defilement. This reverence extended beyond burial. The Chachapoya practiced ancestor veneration, keeping skulls in ceremonial spaces, painting them, and likely engaging in rituals to honor their memory. Some remains show signs of being moved after death, perhaps exhumed for rituals, paraded in festivals, or consulted as part of communal decision-making. In the cloud-wrapped Segment 5, Kuélap, citadel above the clouds. At the heart of the Chachapoya world rises their greatest architectural triumph, Kuélap. Perched at nearly 3,000 meters above sea level, Kuélap is a massive walled city, older than the Inca's Machu Picchu and far larger in scale. Its imposing outer walls, up to 20 meters high, encircle a ridgetop settlement filled with more than 400 circular stone dwellings, communal spaces, ceremonial enclosures and defense towers. Constructed with finely cut limestone blocks, some weighing over 3 tons, Kuélap was built without the use of wheels or metal tools. The labor required to transport these stones through steep mountain paths suggests a high degree of social organization and collaboration among the Chachapoya clans. Unlike the rectilinear designs common in Inca cities, Kuélap's round houses reflect an older Andean tradition. Many structures have geometric friezes carved into the walls, patterns resembling zigzags and diamonds, perhaps symbolic of nature, water, or cosmic forces. One particularly intriguing structure at Kuélap is the Tintero, a funnel-shaped stone platform whose function remains debated. Some believe it served a ritual purpose, perhaps related to celestial observation or water offerings. Others suggest it may have been used for burials or sacrifices. The entire city was shrouded in mist, its stone walls covered in moss and bromeliads. Hidden within the cloud forest, Kuélap offered both protection and spiritual isolation, a place suspended between earth and sky. Rediscovered by explorers in the 19th century, Kuélap has since become a symbol of Chachapoya identity, mysterious, defiant, and enduring. Segment 6, Artisans of the Forest. Though famed for their fortresses and tombs, the Chachapoya were also skilled artisans, adapting the resources of their rainforest environment into tools, textiles, and sacred objects. Weaving was central to their culture. Using cotton and llama wool, Chachapoya women produced intricate textiles, dyed with natural pigments extracted from plants and insects. These fabrics were used for clothing, wrapping the dead, and possibly for ceremonial banners. Their weaving techniques shared features with other Andean cultures, but maintained local variations, especially in patterns associated with clan identity. Their pottery, while less ornate than that of coastal civilizations like the Moki, was practical and symbolic. Vessels often bore incised lines and geometric decorations. Some containers may have held sacred liquids, maize beer chicha, water, or fermented fruit, consumed during rituals. Wood and bone were also essential materials. Archaeologists have uncovered carved wooden staffs, thought to be ritual objects or status symbols. Bone tools and combs, as well as ornaments made from bird feathers and shells, reveal a people closely attuned to their environment and natural beauty. Music, too, played a part in ceremonial life. Flutes, panpipes, and drums crafted from local materials were likely used in both funerary and celebratory contexts. The sounds would have echoed across mountain passes, haunting melodies carried on the wind, interwoven with chants and dance. Even the act of building in the high forest had artistic dimensions. Decorative motifs on houses and tombs suggest a worldview where architecture, belief, and aesthetics were indivisible. Segment 7. Death in the Cliffs. If life in the cloud forest was sacred, death among the Chachapoya was an equally spiritual journey, one etched into the very cliffs of the Andes. The Chachapoya are renowned for their extraordinary burial practices, which stand among the most unique in the Americas. Instead of interring their dead underground, they placed the deceased inside cliffside tombs and sarcophagi, high above the valleys below. These mausoleums, built into sheer vertical walls, were constructed from mud, stone, and timber. They housed multiple individuals, often family members or clan elders, and were sometimes decorated with painted symbols or anthropomorphic figures. The strategic placement of these tombs, accessible only by narrow ledges or ropes, likely served both religious and protective functions. They were meant to be closer to the sky and farther from disturbance. Even more iconic are the Chachapoya sarcophagi known as Purun mochas. These large, human-shaped coffins were fashioned from clay and straw, painted in ochre and white, and perched atop inaccessible ridges. Their expressive faces stare silently over the valleys, guardians of memory, legacy, and ancestral presence. Some stand nearly 2 meters tall, suggesting they were made for individuals of high status. Inside, the mummified remains were often seated in a fetal position, bound in layers of woven cloth. This posture, common in the Andes, symbolized rebirth, a return to the womb of the earth, or a journey into the afterlife. The dry conditions of the highland caves and tombs helped preserve these mummies for centuries. When rediscovered, many were found with offerings, food, ceramics, tools, and even coca leaves, gifts to ease the soul's passage. Death for the Chachapoya was not an end. It was an elevation, literally and spiritually, into the realm of the ancestors, into the clouds where their spirits continued to watch and protect. Segment 8. Resistance and Inca Conquest. By the late 1400s, the Chachapoya found themselves caught in the expanding shadow of the Inca Empire. The Inca, under the rule of Topa Inca Yupanqui, had begun a campaign to consolidate the fragmented Andean highlands. The Chachapoya, though divided among independent clans and hilltop settlements, fiercely resisted. Initial contact was marked by conflict. The Chachapoya fought with guerrilla tactics, using their terrain to ambush Inca troops and withdraw into the forest. Despite their courage, however, they lacked the centralized military structure and overwhelming manpower of the Inca war machine. Eventually, after several waves of resistance, they were subdued and incorporated into the empire. Yet, unlike other conquered groups, the Chachapoya retained a distinct cultural identity. The Inca resettled many Chachapoya throughout their empire as part of their Mitla policy, a strategy to reduce rebellion by forcibly relocating populations. This diaspora spread Chachapoya culture into the far corners of Tahuantinsuyu, even into present-day Bolivia. Some Chachapoya warriors, ironically, went on to serve in Inca armies, fighting in imperial campaigns and gaining new lands far from their cloud forests. But under the surface, tensions remained. When the Spanish arrived in the 1530s, many Chachapoya allied with the conquistadors, hoping to overthrow their Inca overlords. It was a desperate gamble, trading one empire for another. Their assistance proved vital during the conquest of the Andes. Yet in the end, the Chachapoya would find themselves once again under foreign rule, this time more devastating and permanent. Segment 9. Echoes in the Mist. The Spanish conquest brought disease, slavery, and religious suppression for the Chachapoya. It marked the final unraveling of a civilization that had withstood centuries of isolation, warfare, and imperial domination. Catholic missionaries moved swiftly through the region, destroying sacred sites, burning shrines, and forcibly converting local populations. The old rituals were outlawed. Ancestor worship was condemned. The sacred tombs on the cliffs were ransacked, their treasures looted, their bones scattered. The mist-shrouded fortresses of the cloud forest fell into ruin, overtaken by vines, moss, and time. Within a generation, the Chachapoya were no longer mentioned in Spanish records as a distinct group. Their language, possibly a unique Indian tongue, though never written down, vanished completely. What remained were fragments, pottery shards, skeletal remains, and enduring myths whispered in the remote corners of northern Peru. Yet even in this silence, the Chachapoya endured. The ruins of Kuélap, though abandoned, became the stuff of local legend, known as the old town to nearby villagers. Tales spoke of giants who once lived in stone houses on the mountaintop. The cliff sarcophagi remained visible from the valley floor, their hollow eyes staring out over the landscape, undisturbed for centuries. It wasn't until the 19th and 20th centuries that explorers, archaeologists, and historians began to unravel the mystery. What they found astonished them: a sophisticated, organized, and deeply spiritual culture entirely unique and yet intricately woven into the broader Andean world. Segment 10: Legacy of the Cloud Warriors Today. The legacy of the Chachapoya is rising once more from the clouds. Kuélap, once hidden beneath layers of forest, is now one of Peru's most important archaeological sites, second only to Machu Picchu. Excavations have revealed ceremonial plazas, residential quarters, and astronomical alignments carved into stone. The intricate friezes, zigzags, rhomboids, and serpent motifs speak of a worldview rich in symbolism and order. The sarcophagi of Kuélap, perched high on limestone cliffs, have become icons of Chachapoya culture. Though fragile, they remain hauntingly intact, faces still staring, centuries later. Over the cloud-wrapped valleys of their homeland, and in nearby villages, echoes of Chachapoya tradition persist. In weaving patterns, in oral stories, in the rhythms of music and dance during local festivals. Though the language is gone, the spirit lives on. Modern researchers continue to explore the Chachapoya heartland, discovering new ruins, mapping trade routes, and reconstructing the complex networks that once tied this highland civilization to the wider Andes. More than just a lost people, the Chachapoya now stand as a symbol of endurance, of beauty carved from isolation and power shaped by terrain. They were warriors, artists, builders, and mystics, their temples cloaked in mist, their dead nestled in cliffs, their stories etched into the stone walls of the clouds. And so, their voices fade into silence once more. But the stones they raised, the stories they etched into earth, and memory still whisper beneath our feet. Thank you for joining us on this chapter of Whispers of the Ancients. Until next time, may the past continue to speak, and may we continue to listen.